Today's episode is a little bit different, but in the wake of all of this violence going on, all the threats, I know a lot of our people, our congregants, are scared, and especially the moms and the ladies. And so today's episode, we've got a book we want to talk about that was referenced to us by the author. And I want to talk to one of our team members, one of our church security community members, Michelle, about this book because it's directed towards moms and helping them with some ideas on how to deal with active shooter situations or violent intruders. So what's the title of the book, Michelle?
A Place to Hide, Equipping Ordinary Women to Survive a Public Shooting.
So what'd you think of the book? Thanks for being here, by the way. Thanks for sharing with us. Thanks for reading the book.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So what did you think? What did you think of the book?
You know, it was a great read. It was about 100 pages of great information for anyone, really. Focused more on, mothers. I enjoyed the aspect of he came from a non-lethal. So it's basically moms with their children and a flight scenario. So not so much fight, but more of a flight and how you would go about doing that. So you have the mindset, and he has that in a color-coded category, which helpful, very helpful, and something that could be used daily. It's a fabulous concept. Cover when there's no cover. That for me was basically the gist of the book. If you're caught in any situation where there's no cover, I mean, it was the greatest thing, because a lot of the places you go, there's basically nil for cover. So that was very eye-opening for myself. And in the book, he places quite a few locations that you probably visit 2-3 times a week. So I thought that was very informative. And if you do find yourself in these locations and you've cornered yourself, he'll give you an option or a scenario that will help with that as well. Speaking of which, like a bathroom, because once you've got yourself cornered in a bathroom, that's usually a hard place to get out of.
Good information. So, and if I remember right, you told me that he also talked about several different real life places. We won't mention the stores, but he goes through a list of stores that you might visit and locations, and kind of he studied them and look for places where you can hide or what your tactics would be in those different stores.
He did. And not only did he walk through with a clipboard, he spoke to employees, managers, and then once he made his final thought process on these locations, he then sent other moms, police officers, and I believe a sheriff to walk through and, give just an overall of what they thought as well, as if it was helpful, if that would be an accurate scenario or option for them to take.
And so I'm looking at his cheat sheet towards the end of the book, and he does talk about response actions, about getting down and alerting authorities and that kind of stuff, finding some cover and get out if you can. I mean, and so what was his overall? It sounds like he talks about avoidance as well. Is that correct? Trying to just avoid these things altogether?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to focusing on moms with their children, and, unless you have to fight, that's just probably not something you'd want to do with your children. So it's always the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Run, get out, do whatever you have to do. It's so hard to keep a child quiet, and you're focused on them rather than what you need to be focused on. And so it just makes it all around harder.
And there's some, I see in the outline, there's some talk about utilizing cover, and he even talks about natural cover and that kind of stuff, man-made. What did you think about that kind of thing that was mentioned in the book?
Well, that was actually the most intriguing part for me with the whole book. I just, some things you just don't think about, and when you're out and you're doing a daily activity or something that you really don't think twice about, when there is the option of a shooter, he expresses that when someone's looking down the barrel of a rifle, they're not really looking up or down per se. They're just down that eyesight of the barrel. And so if you can get as low as you can, or maybe even as high as you can, to hide, the natural was, a tree, if you can hide behind a tree, which is great, just a berm, just places that I really wouldn't have thought of. And then with the natural man-made, a car is the best cover when you're outside, if possible. And what I didn't realize is I'm thinking behind a car is behind a car. And really the best place you want to be behind that car is the front tire. And so it was really eye-opening for me. So I definitely, really think that the book is a great book. It's reality when it hits.
Yeah, so obviously our audience is church security folks. So when I saw the title of this book and wanting to actually do a review, it was not for the author, Christian McShaffrey. He did send a request for us to take a look at this book. And so, but I thought, it might be a resource for some of us on church security teams. You're on a church security team.
Yes.
I thought it might be a resource if we run into folks that are, if we run into moms or ladies who are petrified that this kind of stuff is going to happen, or they're looking to us for some advice on what to do because they know we're in security and we have training or whatever. Would this be a good book for us to either recommend or, even invest in having a couple copies available to us? What do you think about that? Is it worth that?
I think so. I mean, I definitely, from a women's perspective, we're just not, out and about during our day and thinking about things like that. And
Yeah.
so I think if you had the knowledge and a little more of the mindset, then you definitely, it takes just that much more away and gives you that much more confidence. And then if you just keep these skills that he gives, just the awareness of what's around you.
Yeah.
Take a drive around the store, see how many exits it has, who's hanging around, the store. So things like that, you just don't think of that stuff. You think that you pull into the parking lot and you go in and go about your day, and that's that. And so it definitely has factors for somebody who has maybe a fear or just wants to be aware.
Yeah. I appreciate you reading it for us. And I'll put a link in the description down below if you're watching us on YouTube or in the church security community, and where you can find the book and get a hold of it in case you want to recommend it to somebody or email the link to someone, or maybe even have a couple copies on hand for your folks who may be concerned. So
I would like to add that it is not a dry read. He keeps it clear, concise, and gives it a little bit of life. So it's really not a manual, so to speak.
gotcha. And you said there's some stuff in there that really gets, if somebody's timid, it might get them even more scared of violence or active shooter kind of situations.
Yes. Now, with that, you're now into the locations where they're smaller, more confined, or they're just sparse inside. A bank. There's just, they really don't want cover in a bank. But he gives great ideas of, there are things that you can hide behind, or things to combat that situation. He just has some really, really good ideas, and I just thought it was great because a lot of them are not things that I would have thought of.
That's awesome. So it's basically run, hide, fight scenarios in here, but he gets into more detail. And you said there's more flight discussion than fight discussion.
Yes, yes. The whole premise is, how to get out safely. Especially when you have the littles. Also, it's hard to keep them quiet, and and so sometimes hiding isn't going to be your option.
Well, thanks for the info. Thanks for reading it for us so that we can get the information from you and get the recommendation for our audience in case they find somebody that needs it. And again, in case I did mention it, there's a link in the description to the book that we're talking about, and where you can get a hold of it. And I hope you like and subscribe. This is a little different episode for us, but we wanted to talk about this resource because it hit us thinking that this might be a good resource for church security folks to be able to recommend to people that come in contact with them at their church or their ministry that are really concerned about active shooter scenarios. So thanks again for joining us, and take a look at this next video on your journey in church security.